Elijah Deravil of Temple joining us, and he's getting ready for the NFL draft, trying to pursue his dream of playing professional football, a dream that he's had since he was 8 years old. Elijah, thanks for joining us.
How you doing? Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries, man. No worries. We just wanted to get to know you and your journey and how you really grew into the game of football and how you flourished and developed that love for the game. So tell me a little bit about you growing up in Miami and how football came about.
All right. So I'll say football first came about for me when I was, about 7 years old. I ended up seeing one of my older cousins, play football. My older cousin DeAndre, and just seeing him playing football, it inspired me that I also wanted to play the sport too. I also had other people in my family, like my uncle Pierre, that also played football and everything. But after seeing him play, and going to a few of his games, being young and watching, it came to a point where I decided I was like, you know what, I want to do the same thing too. And I fell in love with just watching it. So when the time came, I came home, told my mom and my dad this was something that I wanted to do. And my mom wasn't quite fond of it at first. She was against it. I feel like a lot of mothers are, but after she seen how much love and dedication that I had for it throughout that time, she, was all in with the plan and everything. So
No, moms are definitely like that. I can tell you from firsthand experience, my mom wouldn't even let me be a kicker. And I'm like, hey, mom, this is like probably the safest position on the football field. But yeah, mothers just tend to be protective of their baby. But it's exciting that they finally came around, showed that support and that belief in you. So going to North Miami, having a stellar career there, how did that program and that school develop you into the man and the player that you are today?
I would say they pretty much prepped me for being one of those guys that would be able to be used all around. At North Miami, I played, safety, and there were games that I played corner. So, just being able to have that rotation and just being able to be versatile, it allowed me to elevate my game to be able to play at any position. So I'll say that's one big attribute that I got from there.
And then the specific position of defensive back. I'm guessing in high school, a lot of high schools do this where you play offense, defense, you just kind of kind of play around with different positions. Was defensive back the main position that you just settled in, that you only played, or were there other positions that you kind of messed around with?
Yeah, defensive back was my original position that I played. When I came in, my one of my coaches during the time, he asked me, what position did I want to play? And I told him I wanted to play DB because he wanted me to play receiver, but I wanted to play DB because I felt like it was the most challenging position, and I felt like, receivers kind of got it easy. But I wanted to play DB, it's more challenging. I felt like that's something I like to go at the harder tasks, just to help with my development. Also as a whole man, as a whole person, and I felt like DB was something that be able to breed, all those characteristics all around. So yeah, I chose to play DB because I like to, tackle people and everything. So
It's great that at a young age you're looking at things head on and you want to have that challenge. Defensive back, in my opinion, cornerback specifically, is probably the hardest position on the football field because you have to pretty much read someone else's mind. And to be a 15, 16-year-old saying, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to get the challenge. I want to have the challenge so that it can better me in life and in football. It speaks a lot of volumes about you. And you just continue to have that grit and that journey when you're trying to decide colleges as well. Because uh, tell me all the schools that were throwing you offers and why you decided to go down the route of going to junior colleges.
I had schools like I went to, a patty camp and everything at University of Central Florida, did pretty good there. They were, had some interest in me and everything. But, after with school, the academic, everything closing down, I ended up signing with Bethune Cookman. And I was just there for like a semester. And I had a coach prior to that wanted me to go to junior college fresh out of high school. But I was like, I'm gonna take my I'm gonna sign with Bethune and just, do a year out there and see how, Division 1 HBCU football is. And just after being there, I just decided I was like, I'm gonna take the JUCO route, and a lot of people were like, man, like that's a gritty route, like it's not easy. And there were a lot of people telling me that I shouldn't do it. But me just being me and knowing how I was raised and always being somebody that was, that had a relentless mindset, that was built for tough things, I decided to just, go to JUCO.
Yeah, it's panned out, and we'll get to that in just a bit on the journey that you were going to Temple. But talk to me a little bit about how long you were there. You were only there for 1 year, correct?
Yeah, in a sense, 1 year, really, really 2 years, because the 1 year that I was there was during COVID, and that year didn't count, towards my eligibility in a sense. So I was really out there for 2 years, but I had 1 year out there that counted towards my eligibility. So
Tell me a little bit about Garden City and where that come about, and why'd you made that decision to transfer out of Bethune Cookman.
I just made that decision because I wanted to challenge myself, and I just knew that junior college was where a lot of Division 1 bounce backs go, and a lot of top guys that made poor decisions, but they were competitive, and I just knew that I could go there, and I just felt like I could compete with anybody. So I took it, and just being at Garden, it honestly breeded me for a lot of shock, in a sense, culture shock. Everything is different out there. You're in the middle of nowhere, and all you got is football. And honestly, it just shows you to let you know how much do you really love football. Because it wasn't easy. A lot of people come in there and they leave the same day they get there. But I decided to stick it through because I knew I was built for it. And I just knew what I wanted to do in my football career. So yeah, and Garden City taught me a lot. I played around some really good guys and everything, and it was an experience that I would remember for the rest of my life, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big name school, but there are some big names that do come from there. Tyreek Hill being one of those, Phil Lodholt, an offensive lineman, Lonnie Johnson as well, that plays your same position, defensive back. So you were there for 2 years, and you going down that gritty route of, Bethune Cookman, Garden City, and now you're looking at the transfer portal, seeing which school you can transfer to. Temple came to mind. So tell me a little bit about moving to Philadelphia and how did Temple come about?
So Temple came about, um, you know, throughout that time, I was, weighing out my options where I wanted to go play. And the biggest thing that drew me to Temple was, Stan Drayton, and how he also wanted us to be great athletes, but he also was prepping us as to be, good men, when that time came for us. So it wasn't, I felt like I was getting the whole picture there. I was getting both being better to be an athlete and also being able to be a better man and everything, and sharpening me in those areas that I needed.
Yeah, 3 years that you had over at Temple, very successful career, 22 to 2024. Tell me a little bit about that system that you played in. You played in a 4-2-5, correct?
Yeah, I played in the 4-2-5.
That flexibility of having five defensive backs, did you have that role of, okay, sometimes I'm playing corner, sometimes I'm playing safety, sometimes I'm even lining up at linebacker? Was that your kind of role over there?
Yeah, yeah, that was my kind of role. Throughout the season, there were certain games where I rotated around. Some games I played nickels, some games I played corner, other games I played the field or the boundary safety. So yeah, that scheme, fitted me very well, and it allowed me to use my, versatility that I've been, working on since I was like pretty much in high school, really.
To finish off your career, your senior year or your last year at least of eligibility, 46 tackles. He had half a sack and fumble recovery and an interception. So pretty good season. And now you're deciding to take that step forward and moving on to the NFL. Pro Day is coming up March 27th, correct?
Yeah, yeah, March 27th.
And when the scouts are in attendance and watching you perform, which event would you say would be your strongest suit that you could really convince the scouts and taking a stab at you?
I would say, my 40, of course, and my positional drills, and just also my bench press too, being able to show them that I'm strong, that I'll be able to be physical, and also, my broad jump, showing them that I'll be able to, that I have power and being able to jump and everything, that I'm athletic, and Yeah, and that the L drill that'll be just to show my ability of change of direction and everything. So
I mean, I don't want you to quote one thing and then, if that doesn't work out, then it could be like a bad look. But during your training, though, however, what would you say you're kind of ranging in as far as the 40 goes and your bench press?
I say with my 40, I'm ranging at a four like a 445, 445, 446, 7 range. With bench press, I say about 15, almost close to 20 reps.
Love it. Yeah, no, it's a good combination of physicality and speed, like you've been describing this entire interview. Um, and to kind of get to know you just a little bit more, I was kind of studying up on you, watching some interviews, and you're a big advocate of your faith, which I really love and really admire. So tell me a little bit about that, and how did your faith really affect you as a man, off the field and on the field?
Man, my faith in the Lord has that is literally my foundation of my life. Like it was so many moments that and certain things that I went through in my life, that only the Lord could truly help me in. And it just goes to show like how good and of a loving God that God is, despite even though we do certain things that are wrong. And as long as we come with a submitting heart and we just submit ourselves to him, he's very loving and gracious, and he's always good. So and that just also paved my way moving forward, keeping me away from distractions, keeping me away from things that could, in a sense, take me down, a really, really bad path, but God just was always with me. And just and I believe that's who protects me also while I'm out there on the field, playing the sport of football. Like it's a real physical sport, and who knows what could happen at any play, but we go out there and we compete, and I compete to my best ability, and I have faith in my God that I know that he is with me always and he is protecting me, so yeah.
Yeah, definitely in the sport of football. I know, a lot of people give credit to God, but it's one thing to actually live it out.
Exactly.
And it seems like you do a very good job of that. So that's really awesome. But yeah, going back to the NFL, I don't know if between the combine and the draft is kind of like the time when teams are reaching out to players, scheduling meetings, just kind of getting a feel. Usually it happens around pro day the most, but I don't know. Have there been any interest from teams, or have you heard anything from anyone?
Last thing I heard from one of my coaches, that Tampa had me on their board as an undrafted free agent. That's not, yeah. After that, I haven't heard too much after that. I'm just staying patient in the process right now, and just continuing to train and just continue to move forward. Just put my faith first. And when the time comes for that opportunity to be presented before me, I'll definitely seize it. So just training in the meantime, and then when the process comes and I get a little bit more insight, with interviews or whatever and whatnot, then yeah.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay is actually your favorite team, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be really cool to play for your favorite team. Yeah, I had the chance of going down to the Bucs facility. Meeting the front office, Jason Light, the general manager, Mike Greenberg, the assistant general manager, like class act. The whole organization is awesome. So, just to if that were to actually happen, that'd be awesome. If you were laying with the Bucks. But if there were any other teams that you see in the NFL, I don't know if you study a lot of defenses or defensive coordinators, but if you had to pick certain systems or certain defenses that you love, where could you see yourself really excelling at?
For me, it's really not a certain team. Honestly, I'm more so like open to playing who's ever scheme, genuinely for me, like especially like, getting into the league and and being new to there, it's still a lot that you got to learn when you get there. And I just, I'm very willing to learn, whatever, wherever, I fit best at, so I don't really think there's really a specific scheme or coach I can really point out right now for real.
Well, let's transition more to than players as well. Let's talk a little bit more about NFL comps. If you had to describe your game and compare it to someone, whether it be past or present, that has played or currently plays in the NFL, who would you compare your game to?
because I watch a lot of DBs. I feel like I could learn. I learned so much from almost all of them. Like everybody has their great attribute to them. For me right now, lately, well, I'll go off lately like who I've been, studying in a sense, because I feel like, I go off body type and everything like that too. I would say Cooper DeJean, the nickel for the Eagles. I've been watching him a lot and just breaking down his film and seeing his strengths and weaknesses and everything.
Yeah, definitely a rise that he's had his rookie year. That's a great comp and great player to uh, model your game after and kind of study. So we've covered you getting ready for the NFL. Uh, Pro days coming up. You're training for that. Where are you currently training?
I'm training in Miami, Florida.
Okay, so back home, not too bad. And now, as we're wrapping up this interview, and you've told us a little bit about your journey, when you do see those scouts on March 27th, um, and any meetings that you have from then moving forward until the NFL draft, uh, these scouts are going to be asking you, why do you belong in the NFL? So if someone were to come up to you and say, Elijah, tell me why you are a starting defensive back in the NFL, what would you say?
I would say I'm a team player. I'm a guy that you could put me anywhere, and I'm gonna go as hard at no matter the position, even if it's special teams. I also contribute heavy on special teams. Being from Temple, that was a big focal point for us. So, special teams is something that I'm definitely excited in coming into playing. Because especially being my first year in the league or however long after that until I get a chance or a shot. I'm very humble, and I'm patient and I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna be focused in and I'm gonna push my teammates. I'm gonna make sure I compete and push everyone to their best ability. And I'm gonna be also that guy that people can also come and talk to, even about their faith too. I gotta involve the Lord in everything that I do. So, I feel like a lot of guys need those guys in the locker room that they're able to talk to about that, with their faith and everything too. So
Man, you just summed up a lot of great things because you're not just convincing yourself like, hey, why I'm so great on the field as a defensive back, but one, you're talking about special teams, which there's a lot of uh, you know players that okay, maybe they're still trying to get their footing right to be one of the starting 22, but I'm going to start out with special teams that just become the special teams ace and just having that mentality of it doesn't matter where it is, I'm going to excel at it. That is awesome. But then also being like a locker room presence as well, being around those guys, man, that's also a good asset for teams as well. But you're definitely convinced me. So Elijah, I thank you so much for the time. Best of luck on your journey, and no doubt about it, can't wait to look forward to seeing you playing on Sundays.
all right, thank you.